This is a tutorial on pedaling for the piano. Today I'll be running you through some pedal exercises and we'll mostly be working with the damper pedal, what that one does, and touching a little bit on the other two. So to begin, I'll take you through a little tour. I'll bring you over here to the piano, and inside you can see we have strings. These are the dampers themselves, and then underneath in there, those white felted things, those are the actual hammers. So if you play one of those, they'll actually strike the strings, which in turn lifts up the damper. And then when I let go of the key, the damper falls back onto the strings, causing them to stop sounding. So when I lift this guy, this one on the right is the damper pedal. When I press this one down, it releases the dampers. So I'll take you up here while I press that. So you'll see that when I press that, those actually lift up. It's hard to get. I'll leave you here for a sec. And then when I press this, you'll see these guys lift up. So those are off of the strings, and I can even take my finger in here. And it's basically like a harp at this point. So those will ring and ring and ring and ring and ring. And then when I stop, presses the dampers back down, releases the sound. So that's the basic idea. And that'll take us right into the first element of using the damper pedal, and that is to use it for legato playing. I'll set you up here. So the main action of the damper pedal is basically to act as a third hand. So if I were to play a key and I want to adjust my hand to get to a different key, but I have, a long ways to go or a lot of other stuff going on, I'll use the damper to sustain the note until I'm ready to play a different note. That's super easy example. I'm just doing a little octave there, but you get the idea of how I'm sustaining that note with the pedal. So a little exercise you can do, I like to teach students literally just one finger to start with. You can do a C scale or white keys or chromatic, whatever you want. So when I press down the key, I'll press down the first one just to start. So you get the first one is a freebie. You can already have the pedal down. Then I lift my finger, note is still ringing. Prepare my finger on the next key, and as I press the note down, I lift my foot. So note goes down as foot comes up as note goes down. So they're exactly opposite. So we have no break in the sound, as well as no overlap. And if you're just learning, you can let the pedal come up pretty abruptly, like you can let it kind of thunk and make that sound. You'll know you've done it. Once you're a little more sophisticated with use of the pedal, ideally you're not letting it just thump up and down. Principle of legato pedaling is foot up as finger down. You can do the same thing with chords. Even if it's been a while, it's just a good warm-up and refresher to do that. Sometimes you can do it with the other hand. You can do both hands. There's limitless possibilities for what you can do with the actual playing. Really important is to keep the heel affixed to the ground. So I like to wear heels when I play because I actually have to move my foot less. It's actually easier. If you're barefoot or in flatter shoes, you have to have a pretty open back of the calf, the Achilles, to really actually lift your foot up. So that's just sort of an anatomy thing. So you'll find that it is easier playing in even a little bit of a heel. It gives you that extra space. At the same time, you can shorten your Achilles by wearing heels and using your foot like that over time. Mine actually got quite short, so I do a lot of stretches to open up that part of my body. So again, just to review, legato exercise. So this is really easy in principle. It's one note. But you'll apply this to more complex pieces. So I'm just going to give some random examples. Say I'm doing some kind of bass with the left hand. If I'm on the same harmony in the chords, I might keep the pedal down and just change with the bass note. which is another function of what the damper pedal does. So if you notice in your music, you might see those little arrows, the little triangles that go up and down underneath the music. That indicates you foot up, foot down, so they actually write exactly what to do with your foot, and observe those. Another question I get sometimes is, when do I put the pedal back down? So back to our first example, most important is when the foot comes up, and then I just put it back down right away. But don't be in a huge rush to get there. You don't have to worry so much about slamming it up and down. Just move up and down. So that's the idea there. So that brought us to the second principle, which is atmosphere. So you might have a piece, you have some, I'm just playing some chords here for you, but you might have this atmosphere where you want the notes to sort of blend together a little bit. So if it's more modern music, even music in the Romantic period, you'll use a fair bit of pedal. That is to say, you don't want it to be so blurred that you can't hear where the melody is, unless of course it is something where they want really deep atmospheric feeling, where it's very, very blurry. So keep that clear. So let's legato pedaling, and then we added a little bit of atmosphere. Another thing the pedal can do is if you put the pedal down with a chord, say you're just playing a big chord at a piece, and you want actually more volume, more accent, you can press the pedal down with whatever it is you're playing. We call that an accent pedal, so it brings emphasis, it brings volume, dynamics to that. So it could be something like that. I've been working on the Chopin's pedal. So I'm using it a little bit for legato, a little bit to blur. But I'm not overlapping too much that the melody can't be heard. And that's another good point about the legato. You don't want to use the pedal so much that you're sort of cheating it with the pedal. So say you just going to do a really simple melody, right? Just up and down 5 notes from C. I don't want to use the pedal in place of my fingers playing legato. It doesn't really work. First of all, you can hear that the notes are kind of accented, and it's a lot of extra effort to be using the foot that much instead of just using your fingers. So the pedal should always just be added and not be used in place of your fingers doing something. That said, in some pieces you do have to cheat it. You might have a big jump in the left hand, and you want to keep it sustained because the right hand is doing other business, and you have to jump down an octave or something. You can use it in between. Or something to sustain those without blurring them. So that's another point there. So let's take a little look at the other pedals. I'll bring you over here. Let's talk about the middle one first. So on some pianos, a lot of uprights, the middle pedal is like a practice pedal. It can be sort of a sustain with sorry, not a sustain, a soft pedal, and sometimes they put a piece of felt in there, and then the felt goes in between the hammers and the strings to soften it. I think it sounds really weird, but if you're in a house or a place where you need to practice quietly, it can be really useful. So on this piano, on the baby grand, my middle pedal acts as the same as the damper pedal, but only for the lowest few octaves. So for example, here's the sustain again. So just at middle C, there's a nice C chord, okay? Now that will work all the way down. That works across the whole keyboard, except for the top octave and a bit. That those very top strings don't have any dampers, just because they're so little. They don't bother dampening them because they only ring for a short time. Anyway, so this middle pedal is sustain for these lowest octaves.
octaves, but only after I play the note. So it's sort of like a cheat pedal. So it works a little bit differently. The note already has to be sustained. And I forget how high mine goes. Maybe it does do the whole piano. Yeah, okay, so it does. Some of them are different. They'll only work for the lowest few octaves, but on this one, you can play a chord, say, or a fifth or something. So say I have this chord, I play the chord first, and then I depress the pedal, and it sort of acts as a different hand. Now that's awesome, because then I can use, actually I would do this one normally with my left foot. So I would play a chord, press the pedal down, and then I could use my regular damper pedal to play stuff up here. This damper not affecting what the first damper held down. So it's a bit of a cheat pedal. I used it in that Bach and Liszt Prelude and Fugue because it made the piano sound more like an organ, and I could actually have more pedal tones that were sustained. Maybe it's a bit of a cheat. I don't know. I thought it sounded pretty awesome. So you can use it creatively. Probably won't need it a lot, but it can definitely be something fun to play around with. The other one we use often is the una corda, the soft pedal. It's called the una corda because when you depress the pedal, you'll see that it shifts the keyboard over. Do that again for you. So I'll show you at the top. You can see that it actually shifts them over about ½ an inch. And what that does on the inside, I don't know if we'll be able to see, you'll see the hammers slide over as well. So it actually slides them over, so they're only hitting one of the strings. So for example, here's a C chord. And then I'm gonna put the una corda on. Actually only hit one, maybe two of the strings on some of the keys. Technically it should only hit one, but depends how your piano is set up. So that softens it by about 2/3 of the volume. And it also gives it a certain sense of atmosphere. So some pieces will be played with that soft pedal, and some pieces will be played with both. A lot of the time you have soft pedal and a lot of sustain within the piece. I would be cautious when to use the soft pedal. You can really bring down the volume. Again, I wouldn't use that as a cheat. You should be able to play softly with your fingers, with your hands as well. It's again a little more for atmosphere, I feel like, or maybe if you're playing for a singer or a band or something and the piano just needs to be quieter, or you're practicing. So those are all some reasons you might use the soft pedal. I use it a lot if I'm playing for a singer. It just brings everything right down since the piano isn't the focus anyway. So those are a few things to think about. So to review, we talked about the damper pedal, sustain pedal, and the different exercises you can do. So you keep it legato. You can use one finger, you can do chords. Every time a key comes down, the pedal goes up, and just put the pedal back down after, and aim for really perfect legato. Again, that's just an exercise. You won't necessarily be changing the pedal on every beat in a piece. Next thing you can do is you can just do some chords. You can even take a simple C chord, do a bass note, you can walk up the scale. So practice changing on the bass and then keeping the pedal down for the rest legatoing it, I don't know if that's a verb, but legatoing it by holding down the bass note with the chord and using that extra space to get your left hand up and down. The last thing we didn't talk about was within the legato, so you might be playing a piece and you want a very sustained sound, very covered sound, but sometimes it just gets too much. You have all this business, right? I'm just playing whatever notes. So what you'll want to do is actually flutter the pedal. So you'll just lift the pedal up half, so you call half or a flutter pedal. You'll just lift it up halfway, so you're just releasing a little bit of the sound. It's like the dampers are just touching on the strings, but not completely closing off the sound. Then we talked about the middle pedal, which can sometimes be a different kind of soft practice pedal or similar to the damper pedal, but used in a different way, just to sustain certain notes. And then the other one is the una corda, the soft pedal, and you use that if you want to play extra quiet or change the mood, the tone of the piece. You can use the una corda and the damper together. Get that. You can just play around. I recommend playing around with chords, triads, octaves. You can do some of your scales and things with the pedal on just to warm up with that. That can be really helpful. Yeah, and just the biggest thing is playing around with it. It'll feel different on different pianos depending on the make, on the year. Sometimes they'll have different sort of firmness of how hard it is to press it down, sort of the layout of actually where it is and how high it is off the ground. And one other thing to watch out for is if you're playing in a performance, I always like to set my foot first if I know I'm going to be using the pedal, because there's nothing worse than being in the middle of a piece and then you know you're going to need pedal and then you don't know where it is. So just have it, if you know you're going to use it, just kind of have your foot set there or have your heel set and then kind of turn it to the side so you don't accidentally press it. It's kind of a logistical thing, but it's really helpful and it's less stressful, especially on an instrument you don't know. I think that's all I can think of to share with you today. So if you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment, write them down below, and likewise if there's something else you would like a tutorial of, I'm open to suggestions. I have quite a few going on my Patreon, so if you check out that link, there's more opportunity to sort of say what I post. You might get to really request something there. And thank you so much. I hope you've learned something today, and again, feel free to leave comments, leave a message. Take care.